The good news for Hamas is always and forever they have the help of the legacy media. You may have seen an image that was on the front page of the Daily Express of a Palestinian mother holding a child who is skeletal, like absolutely skeletal. Here's the biggest problem. This kid is a medically vulnerable child. And what I mean by that is not that this is a normal kid who's starving. That's not what's actually happening here. His name is Mohammed al-Matuk. Here, for example, is an image that the media chose not to use. Okay, this is a picture of him being held by his mother. His 3-year-old brother, Jude, looks fed and healthy. Well, because it turns out that Mohammed has cerebral palsy and hypoxemia and was born with a serious genetic disorder. He has required nutritional supplements since birth. There's a medical report issued in Gaza in May 2025 that confirmed all of that. Not a single major outlet ran that. They pretended that this was like a normal, healthy child who's just suffering from starvation. And the New York Times ran this picture as evidence of starvation in the Gaza Strip. So the New York Times had to walk this back. So what did they do? Well, the New York Times has a Twitter account, an X account. Their X account has 55 million followers. That is where the original story went out, on their original X account. Then they have a comms account, New York Times PR. It has 80,000 followers. They put out a statement admitting that they got the story wrong. And if you print a retraction, you're supposed to do so in the same manner and mode that you printed the original story. If the original story gets blasted to 55 million people and your retraction gets printed on page A14 at the bottom with the classifieds, that ain't doing it. Well, that's what the New York Times did. And this is a thing that legacy media are doing all over the world. In fact, according to The Spectator in the UK, the BBC has actively told all of its own reporters what political line to toe on Gaza. The email begins by declaring that, quote, the argument over how much aid has crossed into Gaza is irrelevant. How is that irrelevant? That's literally the core of the entire argument. If Israel has shipped in enough aid for the population and Hamas is stealing it, that goes directly to who is responsible for the starvation, to the extent that it is occurring, of any Palestinians. Understand that this is being created by Hamas and its allies over at the UN and its allies in the media. That does not mean that there's no starvation in Gaza. The media do a horrible job of coverage. They take all their information from the Gaza Ministry of Health. There are widely variant videos between Gaza markets, which seem to be filled with food, and then pictures of people who seem to be very hungry. The one thing that we know for a fact is that Hamas is stealing the food aid. Here is video from yesterday of Hamas stealing food aid because Israel relented under gigantic public scrutiny and allowed UN trucks to go in. What happened to those UN trucks? Well, Hamas took them. And you can see in this red circle a Hamas fighter on top of the truck. And there he is pointing a gun at the Gazan civilians, basically saying, this is our aid. You will not take this aid. We have another video. You can see the Hamas fighters on top of the aid trucks. Literally firing their guns in triumph from the top of the trucks as those trucks are stacked with aid. So Hamas fighters are like all over these convoys. This is a gigantic media propaganda operation run by Hamas, mirrored by the United Nations and all of its allies to maintain Hamas's dominance of the Gaza Strip. That is what this is.